What's going on? What's going on? Well, we are here. Let me see how we sounding real quick. All right, we're not too bad. Let me know how that audio sounds for you guys. It doesn't sound too bad on my end. But I'm excited to be here today, and let's get into this. So, I've been thinking a lot about FreeShow, as you can imagine. Hopefully, you all have been enjoying the videos, and I've gotten a lot of feedback, which I appreciate. We've gotten a lot of comments in the comment section, and we are growing and learning in this thing together. So I'm excited to be a part of this community, and my man Christopher is on. Excellent. I'm glad the audio sounds good. Thanks, Lewis. But the goal today is going to be just what you see on your screen, talking about what is needed or how you should consider jumping into or switching to FreeShow. All right. And my best synopsis of it is that you need a plan. All right. And I know that you all probably know this and are probably thinking about this, but I can tell you when I first started looking at FreeShow, I was just excited because I love the program. So I didn't even consider it. So I was just so excited. I didn't even consider it. And then as I can look at the feedback that I've been getting, I've seen a lot of people telling me, hey, thanks for the videos. I like the content. This is helpful. But a lot of people still haven't switched over to starting using it as their main presentation software. And so I want to talk about how do you start with or switch to FreeShow from some other platform? And we've talked about and made some videos about how to import different files, and all that stuff is going to be very relevant. But I want to scale back and take a step back even from there to think about what does it take to actually make that switch, to flip the switch and say, okay, we're going to use a new presentation software, right? And every ministry is going to be unique. So this is going to vary, but I want to try to keep it as simple as possible. And we'll get to some questions. If you guys have questions, put those in the chat. I don't know if I said it yet, but I'm Garry B. Jr., and I'm excited to be here with you guys. And we are here to talk all about FreeShow on FreeShow Friday. So let's get into this. I've got some slides here. They may be helpful, they may not, but hopefully they're helpful for you guys. So the first thing I want to make sure is when we talk about planning, we're talking about what happens before you start or implement something. And this is what I think about. When I think about FreeShow, I would say there's three parts to consider. The first part has to do with the planning, like the pre-planning in terms of just getting the system set up and getting everything in place. And this is the stuff that just doesn't really change much. Once you set it up once, you don't have to think about it anymore. That's what we're going to focus on today. The second part of it, though, is the preparation for each service, right? Preparation for each week. If you have multiple services per week, maybe it's preparation before the multiple services per week, or maybe it's preparation that you do once a month because you got everything well organized. And then, so that's the second part. So it's the planning stage, the preparation stage, which happens weekly, regularly, regular constant communication with you and your volunteers, or maybe just you if you're the only volunteer. And then there's the real-time changes, or the things you may not expect, right? And so with those have to do with literally managing the program real time during the event, during the meeting, during the service, switching slides, adjusting and pulling up scriptures and things that are impromptu, all that kind of stuff. Those are the three phases that I would say are important when it comes to understanding how to use FreeShow. The planning stage, though, is the one that I think has been, for me at least, has been overlooked, because I jumped into how to use it, how to make it work, how to, do this for the outputs and do that and do this. And what many people did is they learned that and they appreciate it. But I think the main thing was, how do you plan the switch? And so we're going to talk and focus on that in terms of how do you prepare for the stuff that needs to stay the same once you do switch, all right? And so it may change seasonally. Some churches or ministries may change every quarter. Some may not change at all, right? And so we're going to talk about what is planning, right? So this planning for the stuff that always happens. The reason I say it's planning because planning involves deciding on a method or a scheme for an action, all right? And this is just a definition of planning. You can look it up on the internet. So I'm not telling you anything new, but I want us to understand This is a very pivotal point in the process because you've got to make decisions on how things are going to work. So you got to consider, how many monitors do we have? You got to consider, do we have a stage monitor? What do we want the color schemes to be and all that kind of stuff, right? And the idea of planning, it assumes that you can control the elements needed to achieve your goals. And we definitely can with FreeShow. But the question first is, going into FreeShow, what do I need it to do, right? And this, I've said this in a video in the past because I just know it's in the back of my mind, but a lot of software out there that's designed to be easy or to have that the easy interface, I guess. I don't know what the best word is for, but they're usually a lot simplified, but they literally dictate what you are able to do. Okay, they dictate, so you got to jump into the program and then figure out what the program limitations are, and you go from there. With FreeShow, you got to go into it the other way. You got to say, okay, what is it that I want to do? What do I want my slides to look like? Where am I going to get the backgrounds for my slides? And what do I want how do I want my monitors to look? And how am I going to send that signal? Is it going to be wireless? Is it going to be with physical wires? All those kind of things come into play when you talk about this planning phase, right? Because you do have complete control over it when it comes to FreeShow as opposed to other software. And then provide structure and context for what you want to happen. And so this planning phase is important because when it comes to planning, you got to consider, you're building the structure. You're building what this whole thing is going to stand on. So this is why it doesn't need to change very often, if at all. Depending on your ministry setup, you might be in a building, you might have a desktop computer with a monitor and a computer monitor, and you might have a couple of screens connected to it, and the signal goes out, and it doesn't necessarily need to change the way that you do things, okay? And so considering that, right? Now, when it comes to who does this, right? Like where and what is the process for getting this planning done? It's completed by the media team leader, right? That might be the worship leader, that might be you as the pastor, whoever it may be, but it's decided by the leader. It's not something that you have to have conversations about real time. This is something that happens before we even implement this system and this program. And so understanding that, we've got to make sure that we can flow with it. And I'm getting some messages real quick. I'm getting some warning messages from YouTube. Is the video smooth for you guys? I'm looking at the chat. Is it coming across okay? Because I'm not sure on my end. I'm getting error messages. I don't know what's going on with my internet over here, but I'm guessing it's just busy. But I could be wrong. So let me know if everything is going smoothly or is it choppy. I'm just curious. All right. Not necessarily much I can do about it if it is choppy right away, but I am curious if it is. So this is something that the leadership needs to determine, right? You all will determine because you're the ones with the budget. You're the ones that are making those big decisions. So this is setting the foundation for the process. Thank you, guys. All right. So it may be lagging for some in terms of the audio. Okay. Yeah. So the video is lagging. Yeah, that's a whole nother issue. I'm working through that as well, but I usually edit that out, but I'll have to change how I do my audio delay. I'm glad it's not choppy though. And thanks, Pat's Courtney. Appreciate it. Thank you for the thumbs up. That is good. So when we talk about this from a leadership perspective, you got to make that decision and then you set it. That's it. That's the foundation. We're going to use this many monitors. We're going to have a stage monitor. We need to show this, and this. And we're going to have a live stream that's going to use this program connected to FreeShow to send that signal out. And this is how it's going to be. And this is what we're talking about in terms of the planning. Now, how do we start that process? Once you download this program and you see how robust it is, I'm going to lay out my top 5 steps that I think you need to consider doing before you even have your first service, before you even introduce this to your volunteers. These are the things that I would say are the most important steps to make this be as smooth as possible. And then we'll kind of look at what that looks like from a real user interface perspective. And I'll share my screen and stuff like that. All right. So for me, what I've identified is templates are king when it comes to FreeShow. And I say they're king not because they're the most powerful part of FreeShow, but because they're literally the foundation of what I would say the best way to start. You want to understand how to edit your templates, how to create a template. And once you create your template, it literally sets the stage for the next part, the styles. All right. And when I first started using FreeShow, styles weren't that important to me. I was really excited about making a bunch of different templates. And the reality is we're not going to be using multiple templates and changing those templates all the time. Once you set them, you can forget it and just work with it, right? So this is it's a planning phase. You just set it up, right? So you design all the templates that you want. You say, okay, I want to have a video background on this template. I want the text to be this big. I want it to shrink to fit as needed because this is going to show scriptures and lyrics. We're going to have this color scheme with the background and whatever it may be. So you got to set those templates up. And then once you decide what your template is, now you can design your style, okay? So you design your template first, and then you build on top of that, you build your styles. And your styles are the pre-made layouts for each output. And this is important to understand the difference. And I may be preaching to the choir, but there are going to be some people that are going to come along that are thinking about switching to FreeShow, but these components are lacking. They're not clear on this. This is where I'm trying to bring some clarity, and I'm excited because I've been working on a project like how to implement FreeShow. That's kind of the course that I'm working on the most right now. So a lot of the content you're seeing me talk about and working on is really gearing up and building up towards that, because I really want to see people start to use this program in their ministry with some confidence. Now, I know some of you guys are using it right away, and that's great. I would probably be that way. I would have just jumped in and started using it. And I've got some ministries that I work with. They just jumped in and started using it, and they didn't even know how to clear the screen. They didn't know how to clear all, but they just loved it more than their other program from just what I showed them. And they were like, yep, I'm switching over next week. And I'm like, wait. And they didn't know any of this stuff. And so this is where it becomes important. But understanding how FreeShow works, let's take a step back. FreeShow allows you, it's a presentation software that happens to be free, which it still baffles me that it's free, but it's a presentation software that allows you to send out the same content, okay, the same content to a lot of different places, so multiple outputs, but in different formats. So you can send out the same information, okay, the same text, the same graphics or whatever, whatever it is you want to have, but you can do it to multiple places, and you can do it and arrange it in different formats. And that's why the templates are kind of the foundation of this thing, because the templates decide what it looks like, what that layout is going to be for this monitor. It decides what that layout is going to be for that monitor, what the layout is going to be for the stage, what the layout is going to be for all these different things. And so the templates are important to understand, because when you start with other programs that are not ProPresenter, the templates are already made for you. You don't get to decide that. They're already pre-made, and you just got to work within the confines of the template. Whereas when you get to FreeShow, it shifts to where you're looking at it and you have to say, okay, I have the complete freedom to make this template however I want it to look. This slide can look however I want. What do I want? And you decide, right? The developer's done a good job of putting in some pre-made templates for you. And so you need to pick which one of those you want or customize it, right? I enjoy customizing it. My wife is a graphic designer, so I picked up a lot of traits from her to do everything kind of unique as best I can, but she's unbelievable. I'm not. When it comes to design, I'm not unbelievable. It's very believable what I do, very simple, but I still like to have that granular control to say, hey, this is what I want it to look like. And I want this to be this big, and I want this to be this way, this far over. I want this to be that far over, and this small, and this part of the screen. Those things are important to me. And so you literally can just right click and duplicate any template you want as your starting point, and then make the changes that you want. That way you're not losing any template. You're just adding to it, and you can customize the one that you've duplicated. All right. So same content, different outputs, but in multiple outputs in different formats. All right. And this is where the power of FreeShow is. So those styles, they dictate the format of each separate output. So you might have a screen in the lobby. Okay. Does it have to have different content than what's showing in-house? Not likely, but it is a separate output, because you might want to format it different, because the screen in the lobby is standing up, in a different way. It's actually vertical as opposed to horizontal, or it's something that you don't have any audio to, so you need to have something different to it. Or maybe whatever that is, you want to have a different color scheme because the lobby has a different color, so you want a different background to the slides that are going to be in the lobby. That's that different format that you can decide by a style setting. Okay, and then once you determine your styles, now you go to the outputs. Okay, and so your output settings assign your screens. And so, as I said before, and I recently did a video where I visited a church, Christ Fellowship, and they're having a North Georgia revival. was a great time, great fellowship time, and great teaching and everything, great worship. They had a big LED screen on their stage that was like I'm guessing it was a 10 by 20, maybe 10 by 25 foot, something like that. And then they had two monitors on the side, and they had a stage display in the back. I love looking at the way things are set up. And I don't know if they were using FreeShow or not. I didn't ask them that. I just look at it and I'm thinking, okay, can that be created in FreeShow? And I had to go to the basics and say, okay, what is the number of screens that they had? Okay, this is what we talk about with the outputs. What was the layout of those screens? That goes to those templates and styles, right? And then you literally just create those pieces first, and then you go into your slides and you start making changes. But before we get to the slides and stuff, we still have other things that are part of the foundation. After you set up your output settings, okay, whatever, if you got projectors, if you got TV monitors, whatever it is, then you want to set up your timers. Okay, and I say timers, it seems meaningless and small to think about that because, I can make a timer pretty quick and make it on the fly. But you really don't need to. This is a long-standing thing, right? Your services in most churches that I've been to, the services are pretty consistent, right? And as a media team member, consistency is key, okay? And if you can set up, okay, we know that our ministry time and sermon time is going to be 45 minutes, then make a 45-minute timer. And just have it ready. If your speaker wants to have that on the stage display, you'll have it ready to queue up pretty easily, but it doesn't change, right? So unless the time changes where you say, okay, now we're going to give, everybody's going to want an hour. Our pastor says we're going to give everybody an hour to speak, including them. That's fine. But set the timer up and set it and forget it. And you can always pull it up when you need to, because you can set different actions and rules to these timers. And so these timers can be a start of service timer. I would encourage everybody to set up a timer that says, to go until a certain time. All right. And we'll talk and look and see how to do that. But you can set timers in FreeShow that says this timer is going to go from whatever time it is right now all the way till 10 a.m. Right. Because our service starts at 10 a.m. So it literally is a countdown timer to 10 a.m. You can literally set that up on a slide and have it be a part of your show every Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday, whatever time you meet. Set it up and have it there for each of those services that start at 10 a.m. or that start at 11 a.m. and it's a part of the show. It doesn't need to be updated every time because 11 o'clock is 11 o'clock all the time. It's the same way. And so you can set that timer up. And then, like I said, the speaker length, the praise and worship length. Some ministries have a set time for how long praise and worship is going to go. You can set that timer for the worship leaders to know how much time they have. So if they have an hour, if they've got 20 minutes, they've got 30 minutes, whatever it is, set a timer for that and have it preset, right? And then we get to the project templates. And so the project templates has to do with how is the flow of service going to be, right? And I've made the last FreeShow Friday, I believe it was, we had a discussion about how to create these templates. Basically, we laid out a whole service, right? How to make a whole service. And I exported that out from FreeShow Friday and put it into a separate video. So you can go back on YouTube and look at how to lay out a whole service. And what you'll find is made up of a multitude of different shows, right? So each show has its own space. So each song is a show, but you don't want to put 4 songs in the same show. You want to have one song for one show, the next song for the next show, the next song for the next show. So you might have 5 songs. Okay, that's 5 separate shows. And those 5 separate shows can be in the same section where it's praise and worship or singing, whatever you call your worship time. You make that label in the section for that particular project template. And then for your sermon, the same way. You may not know what the sermon notes are going to be or what the scriptures are going to be every time, but you can set space aside for it, right? You may have similar announcements and or opening slides and maybe even closing slides, right? To where you're just announcing the upcoming service the next week, right? Or maybe the midweek service, if there's a such thing, or Bible study service, or a small group meeting. Those things are going to stay the same because they're the same time, right? So you are the same information at the very least. You can make a generic slide for that and make that be a part of a project template, right? This is all about the foundation. This is all about planning for FreeShow. And so once you can understand how to lay these things out, you'll have the confidence to know, okay, we can go to phase 2, which is the preparation phase, to say, okay, now we're ready to do this in a service because we've done all these steps. And like I said, this doesn't involve everybody. This is all just setup stuff, okay? So this is just getting things situated so that volunteers can then start to use it and switch between slides and switch between shows, find songs, and pull up the scriptures and all that kind of stuff. But if you just jump in and say, oh, I can pull up the scriptures and I can do this, but you haven't laid the foundation in this way, you're going to have a challenge of you're going to lack consistency. It's not going to be a reliable process in place, and because we just haven't built that structure. And so this is my recommendation. I'm not saying this is a default for everything and everybody with everything, but I will say that if you ask me about it, my suggestion would be this process would be the place to start. And like I said, I'm working on some content, some downloads, some courses that will help equip you to be able to determine these things by just simply asking you questions, right? So it's just a questionnaire is my goal, at least a survey where it just asks you, how many TVs do you have? How many monitors do you have? How many projectors you have? Do you have a stage display? Do you what's your color scheme for your ministry and all those kind of things? Because my goal is to help make this as simple as possible, because I know how difficult it is as a media team member to try to be effective and be invisible at the same time. Right? Because as a good media team member, I would tell the folks I work with, I'm like, I want to be a ninja. I want to be invisible, right? I want to be there, but nobody know that I'm there, right? I want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. I want to make sure the audio sounds proper. There's no peaks in the audio. There's no lulls. I want to make sure that everything is spelled correctly and all these kind of things. I want to make sure the live stream is smooth. And then I need to make sure nobody even knows that I'm here. And that's the hardest part, to do it seamlessly, where you're not back there banging around and making noise and, talking to each other real loud. If you're in the same space, some people have a production suite space, which is great. A lot of the smaller ministries I was a part of, that was not a part of the equation. So we had to be quiet, right? We couldn't talk back there too much. We would text sometimes if need be, but we needed to have a process in place. And this is the idea, to have that process in place. And this is going to be effective in process for whether you're small or large in terms of ministry size. That's irrelevant, because you still need to approach this the same way with a plan. So let's jump into the screen. All right. So this is my screen here. This is what you guys have been looking at. This is just a short show. And what I want to talk about is, let's look at this. So we're going to talk about templates first. So when you go into FreeShow, the first thing you probably want to do is you probably want to start importing all your old songs and all that kind of stuff, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but you still have to make a plan for your structure, your process. So I would say start with your templates down here at the bottom. All right. When you get to the templates, I'm going to pull this all the way up so you can see it as big as it can be. They have a number of different templates that are pre-made, right? Some of these that you're looking at on my screen, I actually just duplicated and made my own template. So understand that it's going to look different for you than it does on my screen, but this is where you get to come in and customize. So these are my song templates. They got another category called scripture, and then they got another one called presentations in here as well. And I think I made this one called lower thirds because I just threw that in there. But I would probably, this is a place for you to categorize and organize them. But the reality is, when you build your foundation, you want to make sure that you set this up in a way that makes sense for every service. And you can make some tweaks to it as needed. And we'll make those tweaks later on. Those tweaks are not going to be long-term tweaks. This is the long-term. Is our slide going to be huge, right? So let's see. Let me see if this is a active. Okay, so we got that as a scripture. I'm going to pull up an actual song so we can play with how it would look. So you can do a quick search for a song. You can import your own song to just customize it how you want. So I'm going to pull in this song here. Let's see what it looks like. All right. So we got this song here, and I want to make it be big enough because I only have monitors that are in the front of the church, and we want to make sure everybody can see it from front to back. I like my text to be supersized. Okay. So I make my text big and bold. If I go to my templates, this is called big bold, right? It doesn't have any background to it. It's just words and a darker background to it. So the way I set this up, I literally can drag this template into the first slide of the show, and it locks it in to where now everything is going to be using that particular template. All right. Now it was there by default already, but it's because it was already there that I've set it, but I want to make sure to add it to the show. All right. So now I've got that template in place, and the way that I would edit this template, if I wanted to change it, I can just right click on it and click edit. And I might say, oh, I want it to be even bigger than this. So you might click on that and you say, I want it to be a little bit taller in terms of the space that it takes, and go to the text box option and you say, I want it to be a little bit bigger, right? So you can say, I want it to be 130 instead of 120. All right. So our big and bold is bigger and bolder, right? So I can go to show and I can refresh and notice it's zoomed in a little bit. It got a little bit bigger. All right. Now, when it comes to how we adjust this template, you can say that's enough. That's literally all I want from my songs. I just want them all to be big. The text color is white. I want to make sure all my backgrounds are going to be darker. That's great. Once you determine that, you might say, okay, do I have any other ideas of how I want my songs to look, right? So if, for example, I think about it in terms of, do you want a certain template for the main in-house displays and then a different template for your live stream? And in that case, then you need to say, okay, well, what do I want the songs to look like for the live stream? Do I just want to show the main screen that we've got here that just is going to be big like that? Or do I want to show it over a camera? And if you're going to do that, then you say, okay, well, what would this song look like if it were transparent, okay, with no background, and then with just the lyrics at the bottom, right? And so it would look like this. And you would have no background, but you would need to set the template up that has the lyrics. Now, notice I don't have a background on this. So when you see this gray on these templates, that means there's no background there. My recommendation, because I know it's tempting, I've worked with some ministries that want to add their backgrounds to their templates. I would recommend and steer you away from that. As opposed to adding the background to the template, I would add the background. I recommend adding the background to the show. All right. And so I've got a couple different background styles down here. I've got blue ones. I got purple ones. And you can, if you want to have a bunch of different backgrounds, you can do that. But I just added them to this right here. So this background color or whatever the design is can change. And all you would do is go to your media and you would go to wherever you got those files. So you got to have some files. And so I've got some grunge backdrops, and all you would do is just drag those on the top, right? So maybe instead of it being blue, I say I want it to be brown, right? So I drag this to where it's this blue box around this whole slide, as opposed to it just being a one line. If you just make it one line on the side, that blue line over there, it's just going to make a new slide with that brown background. But if I slide it over just a bit, you see that entire box light up. And now look what happens. The entire show changes and it has a new background. And so now this particular show has 3 different designs to it in terms of looks and feels. So if you can be as creative as you want Sunday to Sunday, but the template doesn't change, the background does. But if you made your template have the background, you wouldn't be able to make these different new layouts. Okay. And so let me go back and I'm gonna change this one from renaming that to be blue to be brown. Okay. And so it's that simple for your templates. And this is just for songs. All right. Now this is going to be important because we're going to set up a style that's assigned for this, but this is just giving us a preview of what it would look like. Right. So we got our big box, or this big no box. We got the big and bold is the one we wanted. So we got the big and bold, and we got our lyrics, our lower lyrics transparent that we've created here. And that's what we said we wanted. You might say, well, let's see what it looks like if I put a box behind it, right? So you might say, I want the lyrics to look like that because I don't know what the camera angle is going to be, because this is going to go away with the lower thirds, right? We're going to have a camera back there. You might want to make sure there's a transparent box behind it. And how do we do that? We can right click on this and look and see exactly how that works. And so for this, I've got these particular outputs on here. I'm going to take that off. We don't want that. But it's got a box. And so when I click on this, this is if you go to items on the right, you'll see there's only one box, one item in this whole layout. And so that item has text on it, and it also has a background to it. So I can go to the text box and I can see that the font and text color is white. I see the font there and it's set to auto size. If you don't have all of your lyrics being one line, then I would make sure to do some type of auto size. For me, I do it on all of my slides just because I'm just not interested in it rolling over at all. So even though this is 4 lines, they all fit, right? And this is set to be 78. I can't fit 4 rows of 78 size font, but because I've got that auto size on, it'll shrink down and I can do 3 rows. I'm sorry, not 4, but I have 3 rows of it. So I would always turn on this auto size and then set it to shrink to fit. and then make it as big as you want in terms of the ideal size, and then make sure to fit down there. That way you won't have anything that runs over. All right. So we've got that set up, and the actual item, if we go here to the item, that's actually the box that this text is in. So it's a text box. It's one text box, but it has parts. So it's got the text box, which has the text. Then we've got the item that has the actual background, the opacity of the background. That's how we made that background see-through. So you can see some of the brown through there because this particular item, the text box, has opacity turned down, okay? And that's pretty much all that's going on that particular template. You want to set that up ahead of time. You don't want to have to do that on the fly. That's not something that needs to happen in real time. This is what happens in that planning phase. And say, okay, we got all of our templates set up and ready to go the way we want them to. For those who just joined us, let me know where you're from, where you're tuning in from, and also make sure to put any questions you may have about planning to launch or implement FreeShow. And I'm giving you a lot of stuff right now. So I'm curious too, have you started using FreeShow in your services on a weekly basis or however often you meet? Are you using it? And if not, why not? What is it that you want to figure out? All right. That's what this is all about. How do we figure out how to launch FreeShow? And right now we're talking about some basics that we planned. So we said, hey, we need to make sure we have some things in place, and that's the templates. So we're talking about templates. Now, once you get your templates in place, then we shift to our styles. So let's go back and let's look at some styles. And so the way that you find your styles is you go to your settings and you would go over to the left and you would select styles. Now, styles are important, right? They actually dictate what the whole output is going to look like. They're not just showing what each slide is going to look like. They're showing what the entire projector is going to show, because you can literally adjust each style to have different things on it. Even though it's showing the same content, you can say, okay, on the projectors, I don't want to have lyrics show up because the projectors are just going to show video. There's a way you can do that. And so let's look at these real quick. So in styles, I've got a bunch of them down here, and I can just scroll across. You may only have one. Okay, this is called default. You can just click the button at the bottom that says add, right? Very bottom, and it'll give you another style. So we're going to call this one planning training. And that, you would name yours what you want, right? I'm just naming it that for the training purposes, okay? And so for this, we've got a background color. Now this is crazy because the background color piece is fun. It's something to consider, and I want you to understand that the Bible talks about in Proverbs chapter 4. It says, wisdom is the principal thing. It's an important piece. It's the foundational piece, and all that getting gets, or it says get wisdom, right? So wisdom is principal, get wisdom, but it says in all that getting, get an understanding, right? So all the wisdom you have, all the practical knowledge you have, make sure you understand. For me, I apply that to technology. I apply that to media, and I say, make sure you understand the variables that you have to work with. Right. And so I'm going through these. I know you all may have heard this a number of times from me. You go to some of my videos, you're going to probably see some of the similar stuff, but I need to make sure you understand it just like that. Right. Just like how if many of you may drive a car, you don't think about a lot of things that go on with the way to start up your car and get it in the gear and all that stuff, because you understand what you need to do and you do it without even having to think about it. That's what I want us to do when it comes to FreeShow. We should be able to do this without even having to think about it once we get comfortable with the program. So background color. This is interesting because the background color is default to black. You can make it be whatever color your ministry colors are if you want. Okay. Now, the black is cool because the black looks like to the audience like there's nothing on the screen. So I like the default to stay black for me. But if you're not going to if you don't want to make it black, so let me show you what it looks like when I say black is the default. Right. So right now, if I say clear background, right now, this is a transparent background. So let me go back into my settings. This is my primary output and it's on. And notice I got it set to transparent. So I'm going to turn off transparent and notice what happens. It goes to black and it's set to an invisible window. That's just so I can show it without having to send it to a screen in here because I got YouTube showing up on my screen up here. And what's going on, Mr. Mike? In Florida right now. All right. All right. So I know you travel a lot, so I can imagine that you'll be probably somewhere different this weekend or next weekend, but good to have you on, man. And so when it comes to understanding those styles. The default is black. Now, when you do clear all, if I go back and I say clear all, it literally goes black because the background for my style is set to black. Let's change that background, right? So let's go back to our settings, and on my, so this output for the primary, this on, it's enabled. It's set to a default style. So let's go to our styles and go to my default, and I'm gonna change it. Right now it's set to black. Well, my church colors are orange, so I'm gonna go there. I'm not saying that's the case, but let's say it is. That's one of my favorite colors for my theme or whatever, and my brand. So let's keep it orange. We go to show, and I'm gonna go to my slide. All right. This is the first slide. I've got my template set to it, and I've got a background set to it. Okay, so it's there. The template has yellow text, and the actual background I set to this grungy blue. Okay, so I can go through my slides. Oh, something unexpected happened. Let me clear all. All right, I don't want to show anybody anything. This is what your TV screens or your projectors are going to look like. They're going to literally just show up bright orange. All right, now that can be great if you like bright orange. Now, if you don't want that to be a distraction, like I said, I like to be a ninja, right? When it comes to, when I used to watch Ninja Turtles, so y'all got to forgive me, but the Ninja Turtles, they'd always work in the shadows, but they were very effective, right? So they would pop the little smoke and they'd disappear. I want to be that way with me in the media world, and I expect people I work with on the media teams I've served with to be the same way, is that they are invisible, they're not heard, they're not seen, but their impact is shown, all right? So I think about Ninja Turtles when I think about that. So that's where that comes from for me. But I cleared all and it turned orange. That is dictated because of my style. All right. I set the style background to be orange. You could go a step further to say, okay, I want to make my actual background not just be orange, but I want it to show my logo for my ministry. So you can go into your documents and find your logo. Let's see. I'm going to go to my website. I got a logo copy. PNG is going to be best. That way it's not going to have a background or outline around it. And so I'm going to select that, and it's got a little streak of orange in it. That's why I like that one. And boom, I've got my logo and I got orange as my default when I clear the show. So the show is gone. But when I turn it back on, that goes away and it goes to the background that I've set, the template that I've set. Clear all, it goes to bright orange. For me, that would be distracting. But if that's the flow of your ministry, it's completely fine, and that's what you would tell your volunteers. This is the style we're going to use. This is how we're going to flow with it, because we want to build that brand, and we want to make sure that people they're going to get used to it. It may seem bright at first, but people get used to it, right? They just expect, oh, that's the default screen, and that's great. All right, let's see here. We got someone. Oh, my man German from the Netherlands. Okay. I like how you keep repeat. I am learning that way. Thank you. I learned that way as well. So I appreciate that. For those who don't like it, I apologize sincerely, but this is just me being a trainer that I've grown to be. So, so background color, background media, you can literally dictate that. I would recommend doing it based on the brand of your ministry, or just making it black, right? So I can say, okay, I just want the background to be black, and you can keep a logo there if you want to, right? Now, the downside is my logo, if I go back, so if I can go to see how big it is, right? It's big and it's got this blurred version of it. This goes to the edge of the screen. I can change that based on the media fit. Okay. Now this media fit literally changes everything in terms of any picture that I put into this particular, with this output for that style. So this style is there. Whatever I set here for this, that's how every piece of media is going to fit, including this background media. So I can say I want it to be contained. All right, so I can close it out. And notice now there's no background blur, but it's huge. Okay, so we can say, let's go back down here. We can say fill. If we go to fill, notice that it stretches it. I don't necessarily prefer that anytime. Just a note of advice to anybody that likes to stretch. I would say don't do it because it does distort the branding. It makes it inconsistent. So I would not recommend that at all. All right. So I would say you can do the contain, but when you do contain, you've got to make sure that the design that you have is actually designed in a frame, I guess you could say, like if you're in Canva or Photoshop or something like that. Make sure it's set to where that it has a 16:9 ratio border with it, so you fit it where you want it to be. And I designed my logo to where it's just completely transparent all around, so it's literally filling the screen because there's nothing around it. There's no border around it. When I exported it out, it's completely empty and transparent. But you can design it to where it won't be this big. You can design it to where it'll just fit right in the middle, okay, based on how you export your images, okay? That's a big deal. The clear style background when slide is active, you can turn that on if you want to. And we go here. For me, it's designed, so let me do this. I'm gonna take off, I'm gonna go to this one. I'm gonna turn off the background on here, okay? And so what it does is it'll do that. So if I do clear all though, the logo comes back. But as soon as I go to a slide, even if that slide doesn't have a background to it, it'll make the logo go away. That's a very useful tool. This is something for you to understand in terms of the flexibility that you have with this program, because remember, the way you start with FreeShow is not the way that you would start with any other program that you've used, unless you're used to using ProPresenter. Okay, ProPresenter is very like that in terms of, very much like that, I should say, in terms of you can have the full flexibility to make it do what you want. And so you can make your logo be there when you clear all and make it go away when you play a slide, even and keep the background black. Okay, that's definitely an option. All right, let's see here. John saying, he said, hey, great job. I asked the FreeShow support about lower third text and they send me a video of yours. Hey, that's pretty cool. So P.S. Greeting from Transylvania, Romania. Oh man, I've never even heard of Transylvania, Romania, except in a movie, I guess. I'm guessing I've heard that term, but I didn't know where it was. So that is very cool, John. Hey, I appreciate that. Hopefully it helped. Look, that's the most important thing. Hopefully the video helped you understand how to do some lower third stuff. That's the goal, right? To equip as much as we can. We all have a part to play in this community. Unbelievable community. I know Mike is in this community, Christopher. And so I'm grateful to be a part of it as well and playing this part, right? I've got a background in training and all that stuff. So I love to understand technology. I love to help support media teams in small ministries and large ministries as well. But I also like that this program is free because, and it also works with Windows and Mac and Linux, I believe, as well. So it's universal, right? So it can reach a wider audience. And I want to make sure that I can help people get that support with great free products. And this is an unbelievable free presentation program. All right. Unbelievably free. It's unbelievably great, I should say. So you can make changes to your style, going back to our settings. And you can say, hey, I want to clear this logo, this background, right? When the slide is active, and it'll make it look like you turn on a black background, but really all it's doing is making that go away. So you can turn that on. That's fine. The next thing you can do is you can adjust your transitions. And this is going to really just be based on your preference. I've got my preferences. You can have yours. I will not discriminate against your preferences. All right. So you can see here, you got options to have no transition in the in. You can have a transition in the out. You can also have a transition on the between. I've got mine set to none on the between, but when I go to in, I've got the fade, but you can make it be a blur. I've got on the out, I've got a fade as well. And then on the between, let's say we made it be a blur. Okay. And it's set to 0.5. I'll make it be 1 second long, and we're going to change this style. So I've got right now, this is what my show looks like. When I go between slides, I'm going to let you guys see it. There you go. So this is that blur feel. Uh-oh. I need some help, you guys. It just crashed on me, but that's okay. We're going to open it back up. I'm not sure what causes that, but I did notice that earlier today as well. So the support team, I'll reach out to them to get some feedback. Earlier, oh, you know what? No, it's not that, because I thought at first it was my video backdrop that was doing that, but it wasn't that at that time either. I'm not sure what it was that was causing that. And so something to keep in mind. If you run into that, just open it back up. It literally is open back up. I'm not sure what would be causing it because I don't have anything else running. When I go to my outputs, this is the only one I've got. Connections. I do have some connection stuff on, so I could turn that off to kind of optimize the performance because I'm literally not using these, but they're working in the background. All right. So I had 3 different outputs going at the same time. And actually, yeah, I don't need that. I think I'm running everything through NDI on the other side. All right. So let's go back to styles. All right. So I got the Garry logo there. I turned that on. We were talking about transitions. And so that blur on the let's see, on the in and out, we got fade. And if I go to my outputs here, I'm on the default. Okay, so if I go to the styles, we're working on the default. And so that's there. When I go to, let's say between, I want to make it be a spin. Okay, let's turn it back up to be 1. And maybe it was the transitions, because I don't usually use the transition on that. Let's see if it'll do it again, if it'll stay working properly. So we got this here. All right, I go to the next slide and it spins in. Okay, so that's the between working. So let me pull it up again so you guys can see it. So this is what it looks like when you turn on the spin. All right, like I said, totally up to you in terms of what you wanted to do. Now mine's, it finished the spin. It didn't look like what you guys, okay, there we go. So it looks good on there. It finished on here on the live feed. It looks like it's staying kind of crooked. I might have to do an adjustment to make it fit, but I don't know though, because I don't have it set to an output. Let's see here. I'm gonna say align with screen to make sure it works right. Let's see what it does there. All right, so on my end it does that, and it looks like this. It lines up perfectly. When I make it big for you guys, I don't know if it's flaking out and staying crooked. I needed to align it. I know that. Yeah, it's staying straight now. But to do that, I just hit on a Mac, I just hit Control and I hit this little present button at the top, the little arrow, and I just say align with screen, and it kind of balances everything out. If things are out of alignment or something like that, it'll automatically update for you and kind of pop into place, almost like it's like when I pop my knuckles or something like that is what I think about when I hit that button. All right, so that's the style for spinning. You can set your transitions to be whatever you want. You got all kinds of options, scale, blur. For me, the between, I like to keep it as simple as possible. So I make it to where it's none, but you might like the scale, right? And so I'll say, oh, that's the end. Let me change this back to fade, and we'll do the between to be a scale change. All right. And this one's kind of, yep, I think it might be those transitions that's causing that glitch. I'm not sure. I'll make a report for that one. All right. And so it just opens right back up though, which is hilarious. But, and this is the first time I've ever seen that. So we'll probably hopefully get that fixed. We'll see if we can get it fixed in an update. But if I go back to my styles and you see those different changes, let me see if it saved that. Yeah, so I didn't have anything on. So I go back to scale. Let's see what it looks like. I'm gonna make it be a second. And go back to the shows. I'm just clicking. This is my recently used shows. So it's still there. And I can go here. And there's that. And it does that, which is pretty clean. I like that look, especially when you have a lot of text. I wouldn't do that probably for praise and worship songs and lyrics. I wouldn't probably do it for scriptures, but for just a presentation, you know, sermon notes or something like that, I think it's pretty cool. All right. And so that would be something to consider. All right. Now and so if you're not going to do it for every slide, you wouldn't want to do it in your style. That's the point. So if you don't want this to be across the board, then you don't want to do it here, because this is the foundational stuff, right? So you might say, hey, you know what? I don't want any of that stuff going on. So I'm going to turn it off. And the only thing will be we can have it fade in and out, and that's it, okay? Because you can set those transitions to happen per show. That's a separate thing. That's like icing on the top. This is all the foundational must-have things, okay? Your resolution, this is going to be dictated by the setup that you have. If you got 8K monitors at your church, maybe you've got a big LED screen like that one church I was talking about, the resolution is going to be different than 1920 by 1080, okay? You want to adjust that here, and you would just set it up, and it's got some nice defaults for you. And if you change those, resolution is unique because resolution is literally what it is. It's like, okay, if I change it to be 720, but still the same ratio, 16 by 9, 16 by 9 there, when I click that, it literally just makes the pixels are just bigger. So now everything is just bigger in the screen. So I have to customize and reset and reorganize these to where they'll fit in that particular resolution. I think 1920 by 1080 is a good default, even if you've got 4K displays, probably even if you got 8K displays, because for me, when I think about slides, when I think about presentations, the goal is for them to be seen, right? When you start making your resolution, 8K and 4K, what ends up happening is the opposite of when we went down to 720. When you go to 8K, everything shrinks, okay? And you have to reorganize and redesign it to where the fonts are bigger and everything else. That's fine, but 1920 by 1080 is a good, safe way to do it, and you can still have decent resolution where everything's visible and it's easy to read, okay? So 1920 by 1080 is, I believe it's the default, and it'll be there, and that's a good way to start, all right? And I would recommend keeping it there. So Christopher is saying the next version, the content will auto scale when that is changed. Excellent, excellent. And tell me what that means. Look, break that down in English, not in English, but in layman's terms for me, Christopher. So in terms of the difference of what I just did here. So, oh, it'll auto scale to where it won't get small like that. Never mind. I get it. I like that. That's pretty cool. I had to think about it. That's good. So that makes a lot of sense. So you won't see that in the future updates. So as those who are watching this video, you probably won't have that issue once the next update comes out. All right. And that's the other thing I love about FreeShow. We've got all these different programs available to us in this day and age. You can probably think of 10 different free church presentation softwares, and you can probably think of 10 different ones that are not free. But I don't know very many of the ones I used in the past. They were great. I used to use OpenLP. For those who are familiar with it, let me know in the chat if you've ever used OpenLP. But I used OpenLP for years, and it was reliable. But I don't remember there being very many updates. And if there were updates, they didn't change much of anything that had to do with the interface or the user interface for me. It just had maybe more to do with maybe fixing a few bugs, but I didn't even notice a lot of bugs. What I love about this community is that you can actually connect with real people, and they can give you real answers, and you'll see changes happen along the way as you use the program. I know, like I said, for me, I've learned about this program since December of 2024. And that's when OpenLP actually crashed on me, and I couldn't open it back up because of some setting I changed on my computer. OpenLP was still working fine. I just messed it up, and I didn't know how to fix it. So it sent me on a hunt to find another free program that I could use to help ministries to train with and all that kind of stuff. And so since then, there've probably been, I think I started, it was 1.3.3 maybe, and now we're at 1.3.8, I believe is the version number. And I think I saw a beta where they're working on 1.3.9. And so there's constant improvement with this particular program because the developers and the support team, they want to make sure that this program works well and it remains free. That's the best part. So I'm excited about that. So John said he's currently using OpenLP. Hey, more power to you, John. What we're talking about today is going to help you get an idea because you probably know OpenLP like the back of your hand, and there's some customization that you can do on your slides that's similar to this, where you can change the background and all that kind of stuff, but it's all kind of baked in. This, when we talk about the background colors and the background media, you literally customize that to be whatever you want, okay? And so let's jump back into this style setup. So active layers, we got slides. So this is where we talked about, hey, we're sending out the same content. We're doing it to multiple outputs, but in different formats. All this can be different for each monitor or screen or projector that you're using, and even what shows up. So these three here, this is the big three. So the backgrounds, the slides, and the overlays. This is a part of that foundational understanding of before you start using FreeShow, what do we want the background to be, or do we even want there to be a background? What do we want do we want the slide to be there? And do we want the overlays to show up on every single monitor in the church, in the foyer, in the lobby, in the downstairs area, in the main in-house area on the live stream? Do we want overlays everywhere? And most likely you don't. So you may not want your overlay. When I say overlay, overlay is literally, it can be as simple as a logo. So your ministry logo could be an overlay. It could be as simple as you might make an overlay that has like a lower third pop out, right? But that's a whole nother thing. There's a lot of ways you can do that. But you can do overlays and have those active, but you want to be conscious of, okay, well, what overlays am I going to show and how's it going to look? And how am I going to make sure that it's not showing where I don't want it to show and make sure it is showing where I do want it to show? You literally can customize it at a overall level. You can say, hey, I don't want this to ever have overlays, this particular output, because this output is going to be in-house. So I don't need it to have it. But I think you might want it because you might want to show a lower thirds of the title of the person speaking particularly. Or you might say, you know what, in-house, we don't need that because we're going to have a big slide that's going to show their name and their picture and all that kind of stuff that's going to be completely custom. That's great. You would turn off overlays. So anytime a logo is going to appear as an overlay, it won't show up in-house, but it'll show up everywhere else. It'll show up on the live stream, which is a great place to have a logo if you're going to be live streaming. Make sure to have your ministry logo. Make sure to have some lower third pop-ups and all that kind of stuff to show up. It may be one that shows where they can give, or one that shows the website name and all those kind of things. Those are helpful, but they're not needed in-house all the time, right? If at all. So you can turn that completely off for this complete style that's going to go in-house. But when you do the one that's going to be on the live stream, I've got a bunch of ones here that I've called streams. So this is a ministry I work with. I've got overlays on, but I've got no background on because this is a full video. I work with them remotely, so I help them do a live stream. There's no background needed because it's going to be their video of them. And I've got slides where I can put lower thirds. If you notice down here, we've got override slide with a template, right? So when we go to idea of a slide in FreeShow has to do with the actual individual pages. This is a slide. This is a slide. This is a slide. The challenge that we have is each slide that you see, you think of it as the background and the text and the overlays. But in FreeShow, those are all completely separate. So if I turn off the background, this is the slide. It's just the text. Okay. This is the slide right here. The overlays are something completely different, and the background is something completely different. They're not all merged together as one thing. You literally can splice them apart. And you can do that at a overall level in the styles, or you can do it at a granular level individually for each show. You can literally customize what shows up. So that we're not even at that point yet. We're just literally setting the stage for the overall, right? So when we talk about a slide, we're literally just talking about the text that shows up. Even if it's a header, if it's bullet points, if it's pictures, I'd say pictures. If you put the picture so if the picture is a place in here, and so let's say I pull this up, I'm gonna just drag this up. If you add an item and you want to add media to this, and so this is my media box. You can see it down here highlighted. If I go to media and I add it to the slide, so I can go here and I can add that logo on the slide if I wanted to. So I can say, okay, I'm gonna add this logo on the slide. It's not an overlay. It's literally built into my slide. It'll be there. So if we go to show, I got that there. There it is. So I can turn off backgrounds. It's an image, but look at that. It stays there because it's a part of the slide. So when you click edit, right, all these little boxes that you see, those are all a part of the slide. This background color is not a part of the slide. It's literally just a background. Okay, I can make that be whatever color I want by just changing the background or switching to different media. Okay. Let's see. John's saying, and the funny thing, he says, I'm currently using OpenLP, and the funny thing is that people who started before me, they put all the songs into custom slides, and I'm trying to import it into songs so then the data can be exported in other apps. Absolutely. So he said they put all the songs into custom slides. Ooh wee. So now you got to try to import them into songs. Yeah. Ooh, yeah, that's a workload. Now, I will say this. I would consider for you, your foundation may involve going into FreeShow and just doing a web search and look for those songs and see if you can find them. And it may be even quicker than even trying to import them, because the OpenLP process might be clunkier than what you might find in FreeShow to actually just do a quick search, set it to where it's two lines per song, and boom, you got your song input by, all you're doing is typing the title of it and it hit web search and then create the show. It may be easy to create that in FreeShow. That might be a part of your planning process as opposed to doing it the way you're doing it now. It sounds like it can be time consuming. I haven't used OpenLP in months, but I would say look into how much quicker it'll be for you to do that in FreeShow by just doing a web search for those songs. And if you can't find the songs through the web search, then yeah, you probably have to keep doing what you're doing, right? The web search is really sweet and really quick. Now you can do a quick, if you go to, I'm just go to shows and I say new show, you can do a quick lyric. So if you can copy that content off those custom slides, you can so let me say, custom song from OpenLP just for fun. All right. You can say quick lyrics and it'll let you paste in any of the content that you've got, right? You can just paste it in there real quick. Okay. And that would be an option to consider. And it may be quicker than doing what you're doing in OpenLP as well, right? As long as you can copy it and then go to FreeShow and paste it in, that might be just as quick. And you can customize it to where you can decide how many lines per slide. You can format the text and you can auto assign groups, or you can not auto assign groups. I don't necessarily do much with groups because I'm not a musician, so I don't know anything about chords and stuff like that, or even choruses and hooks. I don't know verses, and it's funny, but I don't know much about that. All right. But so he says, but not a chance because they are mostly in Romanian. Gotcha. Makes sense, bro. I appreciate it. I'm sorry that that's the case, but once you do get it all switched over, I'm sure you're going to love FreeShow. All right. So going back to what is a slide, remember your background can be completely separate from your slide. All right. So I was just wanting to show you guys, you can have this kind of stuff on a slide if you wanted to. So graphics can be there. The default is it's showing this little icon like it's text because it's saying, hey, it's text typically that you're going to have on the slide, but you can put images in there if you want to, but you would have to put them in there on that edit level. Okay. The lines, maybe somebody help me out with this, Christopher, or anybody else has used it. What are the lines do? I always kept mine at 0. I've never changed that number. I don't know what that actually represents. So you can plus it up. Oh, there we go. Check that out. It automatically changed. So I said 5, 3, 2. Oh my goodness. Check that out. I'm learning something new today, y'all. So you can make it to where it defaults to have one. Okay, let me see what happened to my content. So when I click that, check that out. Oh, now I like that. All right, sorry. Okay, so I'm learning something new here. No matter how much text you have, so I've got this slide here. You can see that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets. It just shows one bullet at a time. Oh, man. I like that. So I can click in here, and it'll show the next one. So it's at styles. Hit arrow to the right again, it goes to output. Hit arrow to the right again, it goes to timers. So no matter how much text you've got on your show, on each slide, you can set the default of how much will show. So you can set it to where it's just one line per slide. And the cool thing about it for me is that it's doing it on that, I guess you can call it the main text level. I'm not sure that main box, but my title stays there, which is important, right? So I've got this separate box. When I go to my show, if you go to edit, you'll see that my shows have a separate box here and a separate box there. And if I go down, I'm curious if it picks a certain box. Christopher, you can help me out. Does it pick a certain box? Does it have to be at the top or the bottom for that to work? So let's see. So my templates, let's see. So this is planning is at the bottom, and then this one is at the top. So I don't know if it picks the second box or the top box is like the header box. I don't know, but I really like that feature, and I've never used it before, you guys. So forgive me for my excitement. So I can make this be 2 per slide, and it'll automatically adjust to show just 2 lines per slide. That is really cool. All right. So Christopher says if you have 5 lines on the slide, you can get, for example, 2 lines on the live stream. Oh, man, that makes a lot of sense. Now, that would be hard, though, because how do you transition? I guess you would have to transition it manually, right? So the volunteer, they would be seeing that text box or that progress box down here. So they would have to make sure they can see that and get through it. And they might have to click 4 or 5 times to get to the next slide. Oh, wow, that is really cool. All right. So it's set to 2 lines. Boom. And it goes there. I like that. I like that a lot. Okay. So you can change how many lines are showing up, right? So if you set it to 0, it's basically saying it's not active. So it won't actually do anything. And correct me if I'm wrong on that too, Christopher. That's what it looks like. So that's really cool. And then, like I said, you can turn on and off any of the features, right? So what people see, they're going to see these 3 things. They're going to see the background, they're going to see the slide, and they're going to see overlays. You can literally deactivate or activate those because they are separate in FreeShow. Remember, we talked about same content. Yes, we're not changing the actual content on the slide in terms of removing content, but we are changing the layers on the slide, let's say, that are going to be visible. So the background, we can make it just not be shown on certain screens, and we can make it be shown on other screens because one screen is going to be having this style, right, in terms of outputs, and another one is going to have a different style called announcements, and that one may have no slide text and no overlays. It just has background images, for example. Okay, that's how that will work, and you can literally customize all that from the styles. All right, so override with a template. We've talked about this one in depth before, but the override with a template is similar to this override the lines idea in a sense, but it allows you to pick, and this is a new update here. I love this, Christopher. So Christopher and the team, the support team, this is a really cool feature where you can actually see and search for your particular templates that you've got. Remember, we talked about templates being the first foundation to this. This is why, because you literally can change how your whole slide, how your whole style looks by picking a particular template that you want. and you would just pick the one you want. Right now I'm using this one on that particular show. And if you go back, if I close this out, you'll notice I don't have any defaults on these, right? So if I go here and I go to that one that I was using for my presentation, if I click that here, notice what happens to my song lyrics. They go up to the top too, because I've got that to override my song lyrics. I call it text yellow, right? But I don't want that. So I can go back. Let me see. I'm going to turn it off. And so I don't want it to do that. I can go back to my show and I can click on anything and it'll go back to whatever it was for this particular show. I would like for this particular output, I would like for my templates that I create to be the dictator. Okay. But if you're doing like a output for a live stream, you might say, I want this to always be lower thirds. There's no reason for it not to be. So you would say, okay, let me go down and pick a lower thirds template. So I got lower third lyrics right here, lower third lyrics. And it says SMI, that's the ministry. I got one that's purple. So I said, oh, let's do the purple one. All right. And notice what happens. The lyrics, they went to the purple background. Okay. But it's in the lower thirds portion. And I can say, that's what I want for my live stream. And there it goes again. Now, here's one thing I noticed about that is that purple has a video background going on with it. And so I don't know how to look. I don't know what to do with this. Let's see. FreeShow quit unexpectedly. I don't know if I should copy this. I'm not going to copy it right now, but that is the second time I think that I've seen it. This is weird to me because you guys, it's never done that before. It's never just stopped working in the middle of it. Now, one thing is interesting too is I don't have any outputs. I don't have it active on the outputs because everything is on an invisible window. And so I wonder if that has something to do with it. So right now, this output is on an invisible window. It's not really going to a real screen. So it's not actually showing, quote unquote, it's not showing anywhere. So that's kind of unique. All right. Let me go back to the styles. We'll finish that up. Override scriptures with a template. And so if you override the scriptures with a template, it literally says, okay, anything that is tagged with the category in your shows for, let's see here. I got songs and scripture. So it's got this little icon on the bottom left there, if you can see that. And so the scriptures, you will find them from here. They got the icon there as well. When you make a show that has that on there, let's see if I go here. And so let's say this one. Right now I've got this as my default. It's showing up with that inverted version of it, which is an old template. So I don't want that one on there. Let me remove that. Let's go to a new set. And so I'm going to say new show. All right. So it defaults here, New American Standard Bible 2020. And I go back to my style. So I got a scripture there, but I say, I want to override all the scripture. Oh, let me go back and show it. It's active. All right. So I want to change the default to be another lower thirds thing. So this is our live stream, for example. I would say, let me find any scriptures with a lower thirds box. Here's one that's rounded. I like the rounded box. So let's click on that and see what it does. And so it does something, but what I noticed is the text stays white. And that's just because, let me go back to my show and I wonder if I can fix that from here. No. The number is blue because I set it to be blue. But let's go down. You can't change the color of your actual text. It's literally decided by the template that you have here. So if I go to my templates for that curved one, let me see what the color is for that. Under scripture templates. So I've got it there. Oh, I clicked it, but it should be black. It should show up as black like that. Let me go to the settings and let's see. So it's kind of like a dark grayish color, which that's fine, but it's showing up there. All right. So if I go to, let's see if we do another set of scriptures. I'm just do 2 here. All right, let's right click on that and say new show. And it didn't put it in there that way. Let me see. I got it set to override scripture with a template for the default. And this is my default. Okay, that's good. And so it's showing here. When I click on that, yeah, it's still doing that funky change for it in terms of the color. And so I have to consider what would be causing that. And I'm not quite sure. So Christopher, anybody else, you guys can help me out with why it's showing up the white, even though my template has black text here. So I'm curious, very curious. It's an easy fix for me in terms of just selecting it here, right? And it changes the whole show. This is what I recommend you do in terms of if you know where this is going to go, you can change it in that style layout, that style format to where it'll be that way. I've never run into that either, which is interesting because it always would change, which is what I expected it to do, but it didn't that time. It usually will, right? So I'm sorry if it's doing that for you guys too. If it does, report it. We'll make sure we can try to do our best to report that issue and see what we can do to get it fixed. And so I'm gonna close that out. I don't necessarily want to have that, but you can have override your slides or override your scriptures with a certain template. All right. He said he thinks it's because the scripture template in the drawer has a white color. The text doesn't have a white color though, right? So, scripture template in the drawer. Gotcha. You talking about over here. Yeah, I was thinking that too, because it is white here. Let's test it out. So let's go here. I'm going to change this to be not lyrics. So let's do scripture. Let's do this square scripture box. All right. And I'm going to put in a new set of scriptures. We're going to go to 2 Chronicles. Let's do a new set of scriptures. Right click, and we're going to say new show. Now, this is a square default with the black text. You know what? I didn't change my style. I took that off. So I'm going to make the style back. So I'm in my default styles. I'm going to make that default style be, and we're just doing some troubleshooting. I'm going to make it be the curved lower scripture round. I should say not curved, but round is the default. So let's go back to the show. And I didn't add that 2 Chronicles yet, right? So let's go to something here. I'm just going to pick some random verses. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say new show. I've got this set where the text is black. And we say new show. And so if I go to Chronicles, you'll see there, it's showing the square, which is what I've got here. But then over here, it's rounded because that's the default that I've set. And I've even got it set with this little blue, light blue color for the numbers. And that was all set down here. So you can change the number reference color, or what they call it, the verse number color as well. So that is a part of the process. I've never seen that though, Christopher, that it would do that, but that makes sense. So basically, whatever your colors are set here, that color of the text will carry over to your slide up here. Interesting. Learning something new every day. This is one thing I love about this program. All right. And then it also is still keeping that line thing going on. So I can turn that off and turn it to 0, and it won't have to make me click, because at first it was hiding the New American Standard Bible down here, but I made it to where it won't do that. When I had it on one line, it just had the first thing, and I had the arrow again, which is cool. All right. Thanks, Christopher, for that, because that's absolutely the case. Display metadata. This is something that's completely up to you. You can determine where you want it to show. Metadata has to do with the context or the details of your songs, right? Typically, it may. Does it have anything to do with the? Does this metadata does it have anything to do with the scriptures as well? Those who know, let me know. I don't use it at all. I have it on no slides, but you can set it to where it's on all your slides. You can set it to where it's on the first and last, the last slide only, or the first slide. Okay, and that has to do with the source where you get it from. I know that much. And then you can also change your message template, right? Right now, the message template is set to message. Let me see what my message template looks like. So it's right there at the top. But you might say, you know what? I want mine to be at the bottom. I want it to be a scroll. I had made a message scroll option here that would be it could be a used one. And you can make it to where you can set that up and pick which template. These are all the templates that we talked about. That has to come first. Otherwise, you'll come here, there won't be anything to select, but you can make your templates how you want. You say, okay, our church, we want our message to be at the bottom with a blue scroll bar with white text, because that's our color themes for our ministry, right? You can do that, all right, which is really cool. Right now, it defaults to being right at the top. And so this is the styles. The next step in that process was to go to your outputs. And we've talked in depth. Go back and look at some of the videos about the outputs, but your output is directly affected by the style that you use. And you literally pick one. It'll default to default on its own. You can make it be none if you want, but you also can make it be, I don't know, but it may default to none. So forgive me for that. But you can pick any of those particular styles that we've made. And I've got a few of them in here, and we were working on default, so I can make it be default and it'll be there. The output screen, that literally just has to do with what screens. We talked about earlier, a checklist, if you could, of how many screens do we have? How many projectors do we have? Do we want to send this signal to? And all that hardware stuff. And if you're already using a program, all that's not gonna necessarily change. You just need to make sure to tell FreeShow, and you would pick those here, and you can determine if it's gonna always stay on top, where you don't show anything in the background. So if you've got an internet window behind this, you won't be able to see that. And then you got the kiosk mode that makes it even a step further. I call it it's like the next level up, to where it'll make it to where you can't use any program on the computer except FreeShow, which is really cool. All right. And then NDI. This goes back to the first questions we asked. We've got outputs. Are we running cables to all these outputs, or do we need to connect some of these wirelessly? Right. And so I've got a wireless feed going on right now through NDI. Let's see here. This is just running from a tablet. I've just got it on a tablet, wirelessly being sent through. I got an NDI app on my tablet called Vixio. I did a video about that too, so check it out on how to use NDI or whatnot. But it's there, and I've got that connected to an ATEM. So it's sending this signal to an ATEM that's connected to my YOLO box, so I can have that lower thirds if I wanted to, or whatever slides. I had the slides showing for the whole deal. So we had this going on there, right? Or this with the background and everything, and it automatically shows up. And that's all what you're seeing on, which side are we on? This side. That's all showing from an NDI running on a tablet. Okay. So NDI input, I should say. And so NDI is a wireless way to send those signals. And then there's no audio support for it right now from FreeShow, but you can select the frame rate options based on where if you got cameras connected and you're sending this signal to OBS or something like that, you want to set that to be the similar frame rate as your camera settings that you've got. Transparent, very important and impactful, to where you can make the background be transparent on your slides. If you don't have a background set, it won't default to black. It'll default to be grayed out and empty. Okay. And then the invisible window. This is helpful for, in my situation, I'm not at a church service or a venue that has a bunch of different outputs and monitors. I can turn on an invisible window and I don't have to choose a screen. It literally is just active. Okay. I can't output it here and present it to anywhere, because it's just an invisible window that's there and it's running. So when I make changes here and I switch to the next slide, it happens and it goes on to the slot or the project, in this case, the NDI feed. Okay. So it doesn't have to have a separate display. So you don't have to have a laptop or a computer that can support 5 different outputs. It can support 2 or 3, and you can use some of those wirelessly through NDI and not have to worry about having to connect them manually. All right. And so we've talked about templates. We talked about styles. We've talked about outputs. Now the timers. This timer deal, you find it in the function menu. So let's go to this one here so you guys can see my screen. All right. So in the functions, you got an option. First option there is called actions. We're going to just focus on timers. In the timers, I got a bunch of them. And in the latest update, or one of the latest updates, you can see they're organized, that these are all towards a time. And then these are all a time until an event, right? So if you got an event, you can do that. And then let's see here. Well, these are just regular timers. I'm sorry. These are regular timers. These are towards a time down here. These are going to a certain, so 6:30, 7 p.m., 12 p.m. And then these are all time until an event. So down here, these are some of the media events that I had on my calendar at one point, and I set a timer for them. But you would just go to new timer, and you would simply say, okay, I want it to be from start to end, or you can say towards a time or time until an event. And it's going to allow you to name it what you want. So you might call this one, let's call it, if you have Sunday service, you can call it Sunday service start. All right. And we're going to say towards a certain time. Then the question is, well, what time does your Sunday service start? Let's say it starts at 10 a.m. All right. So I can type in 10 a.m. And then you can make it turn red or turn a different color if when it overflows past that, or you can turn that off. Okay. And then the preview here is showing you what it'll look like. And then you just simply click create. And now I've got Sunday service start. This is going to be helpful because you can use that as a part of a slide for, let's go back to a actual, I've got a template, I think, let's see here. Okay. So I got this, okay, here we go. All right. So I made this template of slides. Okay, so this is just a template that is announcement slides, for example. And right now it's got an action on it to go to an announcements live stream output. It's got an option for this orange background. It's got overlays on it somewhere. I'm not sure where they are, but I can also add the idea of activating a timer when this starts. So I can right click on this and say slide actions. You can say start action. You can say start timers on active slide. Actually, let's see, start slide recording. I would say you would make an action. So I would actually go here and I would make an action that says, hey, I want to start the timer or show the timer when I start my first slide, right? Or you can just add in a slide here. So I can say I want to add a new slide. Let's see, we're in this particular one. I go to edit and I can say new slide. And I'm gonna pull this one up above and I just want to put a timer there. Okay, let's pull this down to arrange it. All right, so I got this empty slide. I can add to this slide just a timer. And it says, okay, you got the timer in there, and I can go to the timers option and pick which timer I want. Right now it's on a 1 second timer. I want to pick the Sunday service start timer. All right. And it's set to showing 0 right now. It's set to auto size. All right. So when I click it, it automatically fit in there. And this is just a timer. It's there. If I go to show, boom, it's there. There's a timer going or showing. When I go to Sunday service, it's saying it's towards the time, but it's already past that time. And so it's not showing it. So if I go back and I edit it and I said I want it to overflow, you'll be able to see the time. So you'll be able to see how many hours past 10 a.m. that we are. Okay. And then I will go into the edit to make sure it fits in there. And it's there. Uh-oh. It cut out on me. I think it's the motion, maybe the motion backgrounds I've got. You guys help me out with that. Have you guys noticed that at all, where it cuts out on you like that? Because I've not seen it before like that. If I go back to my announcement slides, it's still there, but it didn't get to save my setting here for the Sunday start. So I'm going to go back to edit Sunday service, and I'm going to go to overflow and edit. And then I went to here. I clicked on it, and then I refreshed that to make it fit in there. And so we're 2 hours past, 2 hours and 33 minutes past. And so we've got the timer there. You can set this timer. So I can set the same background to the timer if I want to. Let's see here. So that's an orange, something fancy. So yellow box, and I believe that's a video. So I'm gonna go to video backgrounds, and I can drag this onto that. Okay. And it's there. I can update it. And there we go. So we got that background going with that timer. And it's a timer going. That's great. But it doesn't really say much. So we can go back to edit this slide. And I can make it be, let's pull this down. And I'll make this say starting in. Okay. And so now we got this starting in word or text, I should say, there. And it's showing. And we can refresh or update here, and we'll see it automatically adjust to the edits we made. That's one thing I do like about FreeShow, is that the edits that you make can be done invisibly in the show, okay? And so it's set to auto size right now, but let's say if we do a certain size. Let's do 200. Let's do 400. And the reason why I'm doing that is because it automatically like adjust back and forth and kind of bounce around. So you want it to where it just doesn't have to worry about trying to auto size for that. So I can say 350 because we know this is just going to be the numbers. It's not going to be extra scriptures or anything special like that. So you can literally set that to where it doesn't auto size. All right. And so we can update it, and it shrinks down to where it fits in there. And we say starting in. So every Sunday morning, we got this timer going. And by the time it's, you know, you might put the show up and it goes into, it might go into you might open up at 9 o'clock, 9:30, let's say. You start your actual show. You can make that be the first slide. And so let's see here. Jeremy says, is it possible to go to the next slide? Absolutely. And I'm guessing you mean, and it shut down on me again, you guys, so forgive me. I'm going to do it one more time and see if we can keep it going. But we can go to, let me go back to edit real quick. We had to add, I'm going to drag this down. You guys get to see it multiple times, which is kind of helpful, right? I'm going to say starting in is a part of the edit here. And then we go to this one. We turned off the auto size, right? We made it be like 350, right? So it'll just be that size all the time. And we don't need this extra box back here, so I can delete that for now. All right, that's there. And then we turn this to where to overflow. So it actually shows some numbers for now. So I can go to show, and I'm gonna go to my functions and timers. And the Sunday start service is the timer that we're using. I can go to edit that, and I can turn on overflow just so we can see it moving. And like I said, it's a preference. It's an option that you can have, all right? And I'm gonna go to media. I really think my media is causing some challenges here is my guess, but I don't know. So it's on this motion background. So when I click that again, you'll see all that stuff show up. And then the question was, can we make it go to the next slide? And so that's a good question. With it being the overflow, I don't know. If I turned off the overflow, you can actually go into your functions. Let me save this just in case. So I'm going to save that. I just hit Command S to save it. But if you go to, all right, it just stopped. I wonder if it's doing that when it's trying to save, maybe? Because I just tried to save it. Let's see if it's saved. Yep, it saved it, and it just cut out on me. That is so strange, you guys. I'm not sure. I've never experienced that before. Let me see what my my outputs I've got or the connections. These keep defaulting to come on, but I don't want those on. Let me save that. All right, enable this make. Okay, it says output. Okay, yeah, turn those off. Those can cause some challenges. I like NDI actually more. So my outputs, I do have NDI active for this one, and I've only got one output. So maybe that's a fluke. But like I said, I didn't see anybody say they've been running into anything like this. So I'm guessing it's something unique to me, you guys. But let me know if you've been running into any issues. But if you want this to go to a certain deal, so let's change that. Let's go to functions. I'm going to add a timer. It is 12:38 right now. So I'm going to make a new timer. We're going to get a real time in there. So we'll say time towards a time. And we're going to call this the 12:42 timer. That's what time it is here. All right. So we're going to make this be 42 p.m. No overflow needed. And I'm going to say create. And I'm going to go back into here real quick. And we're going to look at this. So I'm going to change this timer. Instead of it being Sunday, we're going to make this be the 12:42 timer. And it's going. And it stopped. All right, let's see what we got. I don't think it saved any of that. But let's see. Functions. Do I got my 12:42? Nope. Let's see if we can beat the clock. This is like a race now, you guys. I'm going to go towards the time. Let's see. 12:42 timer. We'll make it be 12:40. Let's do 43 for now. All right. So we say 12:43. All right. I don't need to have an overflow. I'm going to save that. And I'm going to go to edit. And I want to change this timer. So I'm going to change it. This is in replacement of the Sunday because we're just not on Sunday at 12 or whatever, or 10 or whatever I set that to. But we're going to go to the 12:43 timer. I'm going to save that. All right. So now we got this starting in 4 minutes. The question is, can we make this transition, I believe is the question, to go to the next slide after it's done, all right? So we're going to go back to our functions. This is that customization that I like about this. So I'm going to make a new action. And you would say, change slide on timer. I don't know. We'll call it something. So start action is, let's do next slide. And the activation is let's see here. Activate when timer is ending. All right. And so it says timers. You can default to any timer, but we're going to say the actual 1243 timer. We're going to pick a specific timer. We're not going to set up a key press for it. Okay. But it's called the change slide on timer. Okay. I'm going to call it timer 1243. All right. And that's done. I'm going to save it. So I had to make an action. All right. And look, what did I just call? Okay, change slide on timer. I've got this action. I've got to drag that action onto the slide. All right. And you notice here, it shows you, this is, you hover over to say next slide, and it says, it's called, shows the name of it, change slide on timer is what it's showing there. All right. So now we've got this timer going. It's 2:40. I got to actually activate. Let's turn on the show. All right. Oh, you know what, you guys? I've got this show set on the timer. So let's turn off the timer here. All right. It's not even showing me that because I got it set with some default changes. Let's do, let's take off the timer. Let's take those all off because I got it to where it loops. That's the part of the reason. All right. It needs it on the slide when the custom activation is enabled. So Christopher saying you actually don't need it on the slide. Oh, when the custom activation. Oh, okay. Sweet. So we don't even need that because change slide on timer. When I look at that, this is my actions. When I go to edit, is go to next slide when this timer ends. So I don't even need to drag it on there because it's going to automatically do it. All right. Does this crash happen on normal? Never. I've never experienced the crashing, which is funny. So forgive me. And like I said, I'm going to talk with try to send some kind of report or something. The funny thing is all this is documented, so I can literally just make sure that they can see this. It says, I'm thinking while streaming and managing the media during the service, it crashes. It is not nice. Not at all. It's not nice at all. The truth of the matter, though, honestly, for me, I've never experienced anything like this before. So that's I'm sitting here thinking about what else do I have going on my computer, because this is new to me too. I've not seen it do that before. So I can't say it's a FreeShow issue, because I've been on 1.3.8 since it came out. Like the night it happened or the morning that they launched that, I was on it, and that's what I'm still using. But even up until today, so I was working on FreeShow. I made some tutorials yesterday and the day before, and I never experienced that before. And so we're just waiting on this timer to go too, you guys. But I got to go there. So there's the timer. It's on here, okay? And it says starting in a certain amount of time. And that 15-second deal is just showing how long that background video is a 15-second video. That's all that is. And it should switch to the upcoming just because I made an action to activate to do that. Right. And this is just a part of that customization. So we literally can be doing something else. So I can literally go into the settings. We'll still see the preview. And we were talking about timers, but I can be working in styles or something like that, or looking in connections. And this is basically the show going on its own. And there it goes. It automatically showed the next slide. All right. And the way I set those defaults up for this particular template show, I guess you could call it, was that I had them on a timer. All right, let's see here. It says, can anyone help with this? How do we get lower third lyrics over a live camera view for side screens while having lyrics at the top over a background on a video wall? I love it. So, Arabina, thank you for joining, and tell us where you're from. I love to hear where everybody's from. So those who haven't, please make sure to put a note where you're from. I love that question. The funny thing is I literally just made a video about that. It's called Recreate something. I don't even know what I called it. Let me see. I'll let you guys see what it is. And I can show you, but I would say that particular video is going to do better than me showing you live, just because it was literally designed to do exactly what you just said. That's the funny part. All right. And so if I go to my content, let's see what it's called. Actually, I'll go to just YouTube and pull it up. We'll go Garry B. Jr. Okay. It was called. All right. So I'm trying not to make it look too crazy. Okay. So this is the page. So recreate the setup. That is the exact same setup that I recreated, what you just described. So I would say go watch that video. Look, let me see if I can paste in a share. Let's see here. So share. All right. Arabina in New York. That video will be the one that will literally show how to show lower third lyrics over a live camera, and then also on the side screens while having lyrics at the top over the background on the video wall. Did you set that up, Arabina, or is that a real question, or were you just thinking about what I already made? Have you seen that video already? Because that is exactly what that video is about. That's what's crazy to me. So forgive me if I'm a little suspicious, but that's hilarious. But that's exactly what this video is about. Recreate the setup with FreeShow. This is actually a church I visited, and they had that exact same setup that you're talking about. So I don't know if it's a joke or not, but that's exactly what it does. So hopefully it'll be helpful for you if you really need that help, which I love. All right. And so going back to FreeShow, we did get to set that up to where it does automatically switch to help answer that question. Who asked that? Oh, German. So yes, you can set up an action and do that. And that action now, it's there active all the time. This is a part of that. I didn't even talk about actions, but I did talk about timers, right? So actions and timers can go together in that way to where you can use them to trigger certain things. And the way you would do that is just like what Christopher said, is that you can set up your timer and then you can create the action that says, hey, when this timer's done, go to the next slide. And it's there all the time now. So it's going to always do that. And so at 12:43, that's going to always happen. If I have FreeShow open, it's going to always go to the next slide of this particular show. All right. So I'm glad, Arabina, that's really okay. Thank you. I'm glad it's really, because I believed you. It's just so funny that that's exactly what that video is about. Oh, Trinidad and Tobago, John Olton. All right. So love and blessings to you too. I've had some close friends from Trinidad and Tobago. So I love that. So timers and actions are part of that foundational piece, because you can set that up and then every week it's going to do the same thing. You don't have to worry about trying to set up. All you do is start the show. And so the last part of that discussion we had, let me go back. We were talking about, let's see, my FreeShow notes. I believe it was, no, not that one. This one. Okay. So when we first started this, if you haven't been with us from the beginning, we're talking about planning in FreeShow, how to get started and what do you need to start with first. And we talked about templates, we talked about styles, we talked about outputs, and I'll put this up so you guys can see it. We talked about templates, styles, output settings, timers, and then now we're talking about project templates to wrap this thing up. So I know we've been going long, so those who've joined us, thank you for joining. Those who are just now joining us, thanks for jumping in and let me know where you're from. I love it. These are the things you need to know and have planned and prepared and set up, I should say, before you even launch FreeShow on a Sunday morning or whatever, Saturday morning, whenever you have your services where you plan to use this program. These are the foundational things you need to know. Now, we've had a number of times where the program has dropped out. I've never seen it do that. Honestly, that's the weird part. So forgive me for just like moving on through it, because I'm like, that's weird. It's never done that before. And it's not a big deal to me, because I'm like, I don't expect it to ever do it again. I'm just like, it's doing that, which is weird. All right. But project templates are another part of this process that we haven't talked about. Right. And so this project template idea allows your volunteers or yourself to go into your computer on the Sunday morning or Saturday morning or Wednesday evening service or midweek service or concert, whatever it is. And you can literally go into your folders or your project folders here, if you have any. So I got folders that you can say new folder here, you can say new project, but I've made some templates, and one is called Sunday, one's called Wednesday. So if I click on Sunday, it pops up and drops in Sunday, and I can just put the date in. So today is, let's act like today is Sunday. Today is 2/21/25, right? I hit enter and it takes me into my Sunday 2/21/25 project. All right. And in this project, I've got a 10-minute countdown. I made a video about these countdowns. It's kind of like a 3D effect, which I really like, which is really cool. It's got some a welcome slide, those announcement slides we were just talking about, right? And then it's got worship. So I got this broken out to where I've got it to where it's showing some opening stuff. And then it's got the worship stuff where it's song lyrics. So I got this song, we got this song, we got that song. All those songs are there. And then I've got teaching. You might name your sermon, whatever you want to call it, but this is just another section. So I can make a new section whenever I want. But I called this one teaching notes. And I just got a generic presentation I made, right? And then I've got some scriptures in there. You might have some scriptures in yours. And then I've got those same closing slides as well, right? Where it may show upcoming events or meetings or things like that. When you make a project template, that's as simple as it is on a Sunday morning. You just click on it, change the date or put the date in there next to it, and it goes. And so let me see, where did it go? Look, where did I put that template? If I go up, it went up here into my FreeShow Friday because I was in the FreeShow Friday folder. When you click that, it automatically defaults to whatever folder you're in. So I'll go back into that. You do this as a template. That means that each week you might change out the worship songs. And all you're doing is going to your shows and dragging in, go to songs and drag in new songs. I don't have a lot of songs because I don't do a lot of live meetings. I do a lot of online meetings where I don't show the worship. I actually show the teaching and I'll pull up scriptures and things like that. But when I consult with ministries that do have a live event venue, a live meeting space, you would change those out and you would have your worship time and you would just drag those in, okay? And take the other ones out. So you can right click on these and just say remove and it goes away. Oceans 3, I can right click on it and remove it. If I go to my shows, which I'm in, I'll go back and click on shows and go to songs, Oceans 3 is still there. All I did was take it out of the template or out of this particular project. It doesn't delete the actual slideshow of lyrics. It doesn't delete your scriptures the same way. Those scriptures that I have, if I wanted to get rid of Joshua 1, chapter 1, verses 1 through 9, I can right click on it, remove it, but it'll still be in my scripture history over here, okay, in the category there. Let's see here. Someone said they're from Marion, Illinois, right? And thank you for your videos. I'm considering upgrading my church equipment. We're currently using Easy Worship 6. So if you're talking about changing your church equipment, that's a big deal in terms of hardware. This is a really good software to use that would replace that Easy Worship 6. And you got two options. I would say consider if Easy Worship does everything you need. This is just me giving you my thoughts. If you're literally getting new equipment, if you just mean new software, that's a whole different thing. But if you're talking about new equipment, which is hardware, then I would bring in all that new hardware and make it work with Easy Worship 6 to get started, just so you know it works, right? It does what you need it to do. And then I would make the steps in this video that we've been talking about to make the plan to switch to the software, switch over to FreeShow once you know your hardware works, because you don't want to have all those variables going at the same time. You don't want to switch hardware and software all at the same time, and you're unfamiliar with both of them. In my world and anybody else that has a technical background, you want to change one variable at a time to make sure that you know exactly what's causing the problem. And that's something that's really helpful if you're going to be making that overhaul or making that switch. Like I said, I'm not going to speak to how many times the program has stopped during this show. That doesn't really mean much to me. Like I said, I'm not bothered by that because I've never seen it happen before. But what I will say is that I really do enjoy using FreeShow as a tool that is very reliable and useful for ministries. And so that's what I like about it. And so I think you would like it. Easy Worship 6, I've never used it before, so I can't speak to it. I just know it's not free, right? So that's part of the reason why I've never used it. Like I said, OpenLP was free. I've used that. I've even used ProPresenter because you can actually download that and use it for free. You just will have a watermark. So I trained myself on how to use ProPresenter. And I've been in ministries that have considered using it, but the reality was they really couldn't support it because they didn't have the team to understand how to use it because it was so robust. And so it wasn't worth the cost because it was costing them money to actually use the program, and it was going to cost them money to learn how to use the program. With FreeShow, you can alleviate at least one of those costs. You might still need to get some training, or you can go on YouTube like you guys have been doing and finding videos. I know I offer a beginner's guide, a no-nonsense beginner's guide to FreeShow, but I'm also working on a more getting started with FreeShow guide that actually walks you through step by step with some particular downloads that you can use to help you plan how to launch it, right? So you can have some confidence as a media leader, as a pastor, as a worship leader, whatever your role is, to make sure that you're doing this in a way that's going to make sense for you and your ministry without there being this huge gap in the experience for those that are viewing online or the experience for those that are in-house. And you can also trust that it's working because you'll be able to test and improve it, right? You'll make sure it's working right. So we talked about all those different facets. This is the last one. This is the project template. How do you create a project template? Well, the first thing you got to do is you just create a new project. Okay. And so this is one just called 225. I'm going to call this new training project. Now, the biggest question I've seen when people take or try to get started with FreeShow is they want to know, well, how do I get the slides going? The first thing you need to do is you need to create a new project. A project, in my eyes, is going to be reflective of what you would consider to be like a service. Okay. And so in this new training project, it's completely empty. It says nothing here. Now it's still showing this old show, right? That's the cool thing about FreeShow that I like, is that you can literally be moving around and changing things and updating things and editing things. And this is what was actually showing. This is actually what people are seeing in-house, that they were in-house, right? This is what's on the screen. This is the last project I was in that was showing the show here with some template slides. But I just made a whole new project, and I can say, I can add a new section and call it opening slides. Okay. When you're making your project, I would start by breaking down your service into different categories, right? These are just categories. These are labels or titles for it. So I would just say another new section. We'll call it worship time. You can just call it worship. It's completely up to you, right? So I got two. I'm gonna make another one. I'm gonna call it sermon. And you might add one that says giving and prayer. You might have prayer right after worship time, but you want to organize this in the order that your service happens, all right? And then you might have, for a lot of ministries I've been a part of, prayer will happen at the end. All right, so we got opening slides, nothing in there. You can type some notes here for you or your volunteer. But for our opening slides, we need to put something in there, so we can go to our shows and we just find some shows that we want to put in there. You might have a bunch of slides or images of flyers that you've made, right, of upcoming events. For me, I'd like to just use this. I got this template for announcement slides somewhere. Okay, here we go. So announcement slides. I would drag that in here, and you see it kind of gives me room to put it under any of those sections I've made. So I would drag that. Uh-oh, did it go in there? I don't think I was on one when I let it go. Let's put it in there. Okay, I'll drop it in at the bottom, and then I'm going to see if I can move it up. Okay, there we go. So I dropped it in at the bottom, and I just slid it up into this opening slide section. So now my opening slides has a show. For worship time, this is where you'll put some song lyrics. So I'm going to go to songs, and I don't have many songs, but I'm going to drag one in. So let's say I'm going to do, I like that Oceans 3, so I'm going to drag that in here, and I'm going to pull it up into that particular, let's see, that particular section, I should say. And I'm just, my hands, I don't know why they're shaking to get to that, but it kind of was flaking out because I was just not hovering over it long enough. All right. And so we got that there. And then the sermon. So we got sermon, but you may get scriptures from your pastor. You may not. That's completely up to you, depending on when you get them. I've worked with some churches where they'll have the pastor give them their notes the morning of. In some ministries, they'll get the notes a few days before. It's totally up to the flow of your ministry. And so let's see here. We got, oh, somebody said thanks. Okay. So, yep. Miss Juanita. Okay. Yep. I didn't call you out, Miss Juanita. Thanks for joining us. I saw your city, but I didn't say your name. So I was like, Juanita, who? Where's Juanita? So, but for the sermon, you might want to put in, they may have some notes, or you might just want to put in like a graphic that you've made that announces the speaker, right? So if you got your pastor, you might have just make a slide, an image that shows your pastor's face and the name of the ministry and their name. I've been to churches where they'll do that, and it's something that's helpful for you and the online audience. So in-house and online can see that image. You can drag that in there, and then once you do get those notes from the pastor, you would import those in by going to File. You can do import. You can get it from, it might be a text document, a Word document, or a PowerPoint, wherever it is. You import that in, and it becomes a show. And you would just drag that in, and you can edit it by going to Edit, okay? And so, let me go back to my show. And so you put your sermon notes in there. Maybe you've got some scripture. So the pastor might have a list of different scriptures they've given you. They said, okay, we're going to be coming from Nehemiah, and we're going to be focused on chapter 2. You can go to Nehemiah chapter 2 before service even starts, and you can click on the verses they want, 2 through 11. I'm looking around my microphone here. Right click on that and say new show. And guess what happens? Nehemiah chapter 2 verses 2 through 11 shows up right there. You can drag that up under the sermon. And now you got the sermon there. Now notice that it showed this as the default. That's because my template that I selected for my scriptures was this lower third scripture box. If you want it to look different, you can click up here and just make it different by going to the templates, right? So I can go to my scripture templates and I can do big with no box. And it's that simple to change it. And then I like to add my templates to my show. So I would just drag this template onto the show so it'll stay that way. All right. So now I can click on there and it'll actually, well, it should update, but I've changed. So I changed my style. So I'm gonna go back to my settings and change that style back. I don't want it to override the scriptures with the template because I don't have multiple outputs. I've just got one output, my primary. So in-house, I'm not going to probably use lower thirds. I'm going to turn that off and go back to the show. And then we can click on the verses there. And it automatically updates for us to see the bigger scriptures with the actual reference at the bottom of it. Okay. And so that's the sermon. And then prayer time, you might have a slide or an image, a graphic that you've made on Canva or Photoshop, wherever you edit your graphics at. And it just says, join us for prayer, or, please feel free to come to the altar, whatever your service flow is. And then once you're done, so we got this new training project that's done. This is an actual service. It's called a project in FreeShow. So projects equal a service or a meeting. And then you can just right click on this new training project. And when you, I clicked on it, but when you right click on it, it gives you the option to rename it, to duplicate it. And if the option to make a template was not there, you could simply just duplicate this each week. But when you say create a template, that's exactly what it does. And it puts it down here in this option. Let's see, let me pull this window down a little bit. So it puts it down at the bottom of all of your projects. And so you can always just click it and it'll automatically give you that same project. And all you do is change the date, change the name of it, whatever you want to do. And it starts you with that same foundation, the same outline, same template for what you did the week before. And this is why I say these things are part of the foundation of starting with FreeShow. And if you can get these things in place, it's almost like what you set up, or what not FreeShow, but what Easy Worship has already set up for you. What maybe you might see an OpenLP that's already set up. You basically create your own framework in FreeShow. You've got the flexibility to make it however you want. All these different options are there. They're not preset for you, but you can make the preset for your ministry. And that's what you will do every week. And it keeps it simple and consistent, but it's completely designed by you. And that's the thing that I like about FreeShow, is that it's different from the likes of like an Easy Worship or a Presenter, similar to ProPresenter, but there's a lot of programs. You guys can probably name them better than I can, but you got that flexibility. And I believe that these tips are going to be the most important steps you can take when you're planning to switch, and or if you've already started with it and you're just trying to make sure you can solidify that process to where it's not as cumbersome, not as clunky, and it's just smooth. These are the steps that I would say to help you have that confidence for you and your volunteers to be able to use FreeShow with confidence and with some simplicity and consistency. Each week, each meeting, you might have, like I said, I've got examples here. This is a template for Wednesday service. It's a template for Sunday service. And then we just made one here. And all you do is you right click on any project and you can make it into a template. And that way, next time that type of event comes up, that type of meeting comes up, you'll have the template from the last, or from the original template. And all you're doing is switching out shows, just dragging and dropping new songs in, adding new scriptures and taking out the old ones, and you're ready to go for service. Okay. I'm grateful for all the questions you guys had. Hopefully we were able to address all of those. So Arabina, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. We got your question addressed with a link. So that is the exact link to your exact question, which is hilarious. And then we've got, we talked about the timer deal, right? Switching it to the next slide. And I'm just looking at my notes here, you guys' comments. John is working on trying to get his stuff translated or transported from, exported from OpenLP and importing it into FreeShow, but he's got to manually do some stuff because it was customized or custom slides for every particular song he's got. Are there any other questions that I'm not seeing or that you all may have that you want to ask? I know we've been going for a while already, so it's been a couple of hours. I'm grateful that you guys have been able to jump on. And if you don't have any questions, I've got nothing else for you except to say have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend. For those who are looking to implement FreeShow, follow these steps. You may not be able to get these steps done by this coming weekend if you have your services on the weekend, but maybe by the next couple of weeks you can have these steps taken and implemented, and you'll see more coming out from me in terms of other tips and things that will help you roll out this program into your ministry. All right. So until next time, we'll talk and be blessed.